Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down the latest episode of Industry, which we've been watching here week to week. Although there are so many things coming out, an incredible packed January. We'll have a bunch of other things to mention, things we've been watching that mostly I want to recommend. I've been actually pretty happy with everything that we've been seeing this past week or so. Joining me for the conversation is Darren.
Yeah, how are you there, Victor? Yep, been to the cinema a couple of times in the last week and sampled a few TV shows as well. So plenty to talk about, as you say.
Yeah, so many things to talk about here. I'm going to jump right in because this is a packed, all my notes for the week are just packed with things. First of all, watching Industry last night, I had not seen the trailer for Euphoria, but of course they threw it right into the opening moments of this episode of Industry. And I was just talking about how the Beauty, the new FX series that is dropping this very week, and yet another thing we might be sampling later this week, that it had 190 million views in its first week. Well, HBO announced that the Euphoria trailer had 100 million views in its first 2 days, I believe it was. So a lot of anticipation for this Euphoria season. And I don't know if I mentioned, I know you for sure have seen season 1 of Euphoria. Have you seen both seasons?
Yes, I have seen both seasons. I think season 1 was a bit of a revelation, but yeah, season 2 kind of a bit crazy. But yeah, bring it on. Season 3, why not? Let's see what they do and where they go.
I mean, apparently they went to Mexico, but I'm very curious to see this. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but very curious to see it. Okay, a couple more things to mention. As I already mentioned, of course, a lot of anticipation to see this new Ryan Murphy series of The Beauty. Maybe I oftentimes feel that people who tune in with these massive ratings, his shows oftentimes get, although they peter off, unsurprisingly, over the course of their runs. A lot of it is to see it, like, is it going to be a car wreck? So that's how I'm watching this too. But I do know that the comic book it's based on is very well respected and very curious for this package. So I'm going to sample it. And Darren, if you feel free to join me if you'd like.
Yes, I've got a reminder set. I think it's on the 22nd here on Hulu, which is Disney Plus app. So
yes, yeah. So here it's playing on FX, which is a cable network. So I think we get it 1 day earlier. But yeah, for everybody in the United States or around the world, yes, on Hulu, I think the very next day. So, yeah, and we'll be discussing it here. Speaking of Hulu, in my top 10, I said there's this movie I saw. I saw it like at a free, not a free screening, one of these blind screenings where you pay just a few dollars to get to see a movie for free. I had no idea what I was walking into, and I put it in my top 10 for the year. It's a movie called Twinless, which I thought was fantastic. And I'm like, this movie has made no money, and I have no idea how anyone can see it because as far as I know, it's barely been released in theaters in the US or anywhere else. Well, I just announced that last week, and apparently it's on Hulu right now. It just premiered on Hulu this week, so if anyone was curious about that movie that I was telling you all to watch that no one knew where to find, it's on Hulu or Disney/Hulu, depending on but highly recommended. Very entertaining and a great performance by Dylan O'Brien. And speaking of, I've just seen the trailer for this on TV. Dylan O'Brien, an actor that, especially an incredible performance in Twinless, by the way. So maybe this is like the start of something for him. Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams, directed by Sam Raimi, a Sam Raimi movie called Send Help. Have you seen the trailer for this movie?
Yeah, when we went to see The Housemaid, this was a very crowd-pleasing trailer to see. And as soon as Sam Raimi's name popped up, I was like, yes. But yeah, the actress in it, I didn't recognize Dylan O'Brien. I don't know what he's been in. I'll have to go have a look. But the actress in it, I love. What's her name again?
Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
I always love her. See her in everything. So yeah, that looks, even though the trailer gives away pretty much the whole story, it looks like a fun movie.
And I'm always there for a Sam Raimi movie, even if they don't fully work. I just love the energy and I've just been following him from the very beginning of his career. So still sticking to him. And that's coming out. I might actually get to see a sneak preview of that this week. So I'll give you an early preview opinion of it if I do. Of course, the Academy Award nominations this week, so I'll probably have something to say about those next week if there's anything that's missed. I watched The Secret Agent this week, finally caught up on that. Very interesting film. Surprised that it's getting these unanimous raves, not from necessarily from the critics, but audiences seem to really love it too, because this is a challenging film. It is very much playing with genre, but mashing up a bunch of genres together in ways that didn't fully work for me. I might have to see this movie again to fully appreciate it, but I did like it. Oh, and Wagner Moura is fantastic in it. for sure. So that's undeniable. But I'm a little surprised the film has gotten kind of the raves that it's got.
Yeah, I do really love seeing him. But yeah, just reading the description of it, I haven't seen anything of it. It just seemed like a little bit of a mix that could be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's very simply that just my expectation, people saying it was a conspiracy thriller and it has this title, Secret Agent. I'll tell you that he's really not a secret agent and it's not really a conspiracy thriller. And then there's a supernatural element to the story that gets brought in and then dropped very quickly. And I understand the reason why they did it. There's a framing device that gets dropped into the middle of the film, and then you forget about it, then it comes back again. And I'm like, this movie's making my head hurt a little bit. But it's definitely interesting. Like I said, I might have to see it again to fully appreciate it. But I do recommend it in general. And Wagner Moura, fantastic performance.
Awesome. Yeah, I am looking forward to seeing it.
And this very week, maybe there's something we can discuss in the near future too, Darren, on HBO Max. Smashing Machine is premiering on this Friday. And just to see how the Safdies go on their different routes here, both having films this year. The Smashing Machine, notoriously not very successful, although starring The Rock. And then, of course, the Marty Supreme movie, a massive success. So very interesting to see these two brothers and their bifurcated careers at this moment.
And this is Benny Safdie. So we've seen him on screen a lot. So I think we saw him in Oppenheimer. I remember him in The Curse, that Nathan Fielder, Emma Stone TV series where he was very memorable in it as some creepy director. And yes, so it's The Rock. The Rock cannot open a movie, apparently. But I'm still interested in, checking out the style.
Yeah, and I've heard pretty mixed things about this movie, but I have heard that he gives a great performance. So it is possible that we do see him in the Academy Award conversation this week. Although I think he's not really on the short list right now. If you look at the betting odds, he's outside the top 5, but he's probably like number 6 or so. So still a chance that, of course, he's very popular and has made a lot of money for a lot of people, although he's had a cold spell for sure. Interesting moment for him in his career, and I definitely will be watching this. I've been wanting to watch it, and it just speaks to the fact that I had many opportunities to see this, and I kept putting it on the back burner over and over and over again. I think all of America, maybe all of the world, has done that to this movie, but I'll finally give it a watch this weekend, and maybe something else we could potentially talk about, as if we don't have enough things to talk about in this book.
Well, last year there was a really successful wrestling movie called The Iron Claw.
Yes.
Yeah, which was incredibly depressing, I thought, but also very brilliant with incredible acting performances. So yeah, hopefully this is a little bit different.
Oh man, there is towards the end of that movie, I was telling my wife, there's a moment in that film, which I did like very much, that is like really trying to make you cry, and it's working really hard. And it didn't make me cry. I mean, I felt the emotions, but it didn't make me cry. And then there's this like throwaway scene at the very end that had me sobbing, like weeping openly. Like I was like, I don't know if that scene was supposed to be the one that made you cry, but I was a mess after I saw the end of that film.
That's funny. Yeah, I liked it. It's a family that just does not get any luck whatsoever.
It's highly fictionalized when you look at their actual history, but all those tragedies are true, which is pretty crazy, pretty sad. Okay, one thing I saw this week that I do recommend, I don't have to spend too much time on it if you haven't seen it, but maybe a few minutes on it if you have. But there's a new show, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, Joe Carnahan directing a film called The Rip on Netflix, which apparently seems to be a huge hit. Everyone I know has already seen this movie. So it seems to have, of all levels of interest in films, even the casual viewers of people in our friend group who have already seen this film. Did you happen to see this by chance?
I did see it, yes. Yep. Very happy to see Ben Affleck and Matt Damon on screen together again.
This was a lot of fun. I thought that it worked really well for me. I like these kind of genre films. My critique, I'm not going to spoil the film, but that maybe we could talk about it a little bit, though. The setup is that it's set up standard for this type of potential crooked cop film where they come across a home that is like a stash house for a drug cartel, and they usually find a few $100,000 here and there. Well, they find many, many millions of dollars. And as soon as you can imagine, having that could be such a huge temptation, all this money, who can you trust? And there's layers to the manipulations going on, what's actually going on, who's in on it. And all of that is really, really fun. And without spoiling anything, I would say the film, I think, would be even more fun if they had kept it as a single location film, like that type of film we've seen in the past. I thought that would be stronger than expanding it beyond that. But I still think this was a real blast. Like, it's nothing new under the sun for sure, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I loved the setup, and I thought it was great seeing all the actors, especially Tiana Taylor as well, which we just saw in One Battle After the Other.
Yeah,
I like seeing them as older guys, the Affleck and Damon characters. You saw Affleck's new dragon tattoo. He's fully tattooed back, which I think is the first time he showed that off in a film that I can remember. And but it left me a bit cold, I must say, towards the end.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's this Netflix movie thing. A lot of the twists were very telegraphed.
Yeah.
One particular conversation that he has near the middle of the film, I was like, well, I can see exactly why he's doing that. But maybe it's for different audiences. And I thought it just suffered from the same kind of lighting problems that I have with a lot of Netflix films. The exteriors just looked like they were shot through a dirty glass.
Very muddy.
I just didn't get it at all, but really cool setup. And then I think I had a couple of days break and watched the rest of it, and it left me a little bit cold. But I think I'm on the outer on that opinion. A lot of people seem to really dig this movie, so that's great.
Yeah, and I would say to your point, I think that there's a lot of hype around the film, like a positive conversation around it. But I don't think anyone's giving this thing like 4.5 stars. I think this is all very solid, like three, which is right where I am. I'm like real solid genre film, maybe like a film that it's like a B movie, but honestly, but a B movie, but with A-list actors. So maybe there's expectations could be a little higher, that it will be a little more, deliver a little bit more. Even like you mentioned, like Tiana Taylor, who's become a star in the meantime and is here just counting cash mostly. But she has a lot of charisma, of course, as we know already. So she steals those few scenes she's in. A very interesting conversation they had, by the way, on Joe Rogan's show, something I've been critical of on the podcast in general, that Matt Damon was saying that there are these guidelines that Netflix gives you when you're making a movie. And they explicitly tell you that, first of all, in the olden days, you'd have an action movie and you'd have a small action scene early on, and then a second action scene, and then the big action scenes at the end. And he was saying that Netflix goes, you need to have a big action scene right away, because we got to hook them in the first few minutes. So that's the first thing that kind of changes the way you structure a script. But more importantly, is they gave him instructions saying that they explicitly need to have the actors explain what's happening in the plot out loud at least 3 times over the course of the film, and they literally told them this explicitly, that they need that for the people who are on their phones or who are like in the other room. That way it's like the show is, or the movie is announcing to the audience, like, oh, come back, the important part is coming, right? And so they are now designing these films knowing full well that people are watching Netflix and just as background noise, basically. So they need to be spoon-fed the plot over the course of this. But very importantly, in the middle of Matt Damon going on about this, Ben Affleck interjected that Netflix made Adolescence last year, and Adolescence doesn't do any of those things and has long shots of like the back of people's heads in police cars where no one talks at all. And it's one of their biggest hits of all time. So there's room for everything. So I'm like, yes, thank you, Ben, for mentioning that, because yes, Netflix should learn from their own successes, by the way. That doesn't necessarily have to be how it always is.
Love Ben Affleck, because I can't stand when movies or TV shows completely stop to explain what's happening and what's going to happen in the future. I cannot stand it. Just let me figure it out on my own.
It's also a very strange thing. Like when I watch His and Hers, the Netflix series recently, this weird formula for Netflix where you have a really intriguing first episode that sets everything up. Then you have the final episode that wraps everything up. And then in between, they're very hit and miss as to whether they can keep the story going at all. Like, what's that movie we saw, the Eric Bana series? Very similar, where it's like you have like a bunch of episodes in the middle that are mostly filler. They still have some of the best scenes and some of the character development happens in those, but the episodes are really padded out, probably at least 50 to 80% more in those middle episodes. And it's just a weird formula, this expectation that people will just have the series on for another 3 or 4 hours in the background while they're doing other things. Where I'm like, I just feel like I have so many things I want to be watching. I just feel like I'm wasting my time is what I feel like.
Oh, I completely agree. If I'm cooking in the kitchen. I mean, that's fine for documentaries, but for films or TV dramas, I need to sit and watch it. I just have too much respect for the makers. But if they keep doing this kind of formulaic stuff, then I'm just going to tune out. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's a really sad. I think that I feel more and more so like that's not the way people are watching TV. So it's just not like the way I watch TV and movies is just not how people are watching it. And I don't know if that's me that's falling behind the times or if the culture is should try to do better. I'm not sure. But, I mean, of course, my opinion is I'm right and they're wrong. But
yeah, because I can't stand if I'm watching something with someone else and they're scrolling on their phone, I'm just going to pause it and go, well, I can't share this with you if you're going to do that. You can go in another room and I'll watch this by myself, or we'll watch something else that you're fully engaged in, because yeah, we can't have a discussion about it if you're just looking at Instagram or something. Untamed was that Eric Bana TV show that we
very good.
watched.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Which is getting into the second season, by the way. Huge hit. I think I was a bigger fan of that than you were. Okay, so two things we saw in theaters this week, or I did not see this in theaters. I saw this at home after seeing it in theaters months ago, but you saw it. And also something that came out around the world this weekend was a flop, by the way. But I think we need to have a little bit of a spoiler conversation because we have to talk about some of the things that happens in this film 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which just opened this weekend. And I was not a huge fan of the Danny Boyle film. I liked this film much more than the previous one.
It's a very entertaining film, I think, for a number of reasons.
So we need to have a bit of a breakdown of that. But in this story, I mean, you basically pick up immediately from where the 28 years later film left off. And we're continuing to follow this character. We found the son in the previous story, Spike, and he is with the Jimmies, these Jimmy Savile worshiping or devil worshiping as well, turns out, droogs from who he gets to fight his way, fight to the death, by the way, to make the cut or not, no pun intended. And then we see what happens to him. But that's not the only thing that happens here. We actually go and we spend time with Dr. What's his name? Kelsing?
Dr. Right? Kelson, yes. Ray Fiennes turning in a brilliant performance, I thought. Having so absolutely. Much fun.
Yeah. He has a blast. He gets to dance. He has all of Duran Duran's albums on vinyl, apparently.
Radiohead as well.
Yeah, at first it was funny. I was like, is this his Desert Island Jukebox is just Duran Duran? But no, it turned out he got Radiohead. And of course, he's got Iron Maiden. He's played some Maiden. But yeah, so this is an incredible performance by Ray Fiennes. And we got to talk about it a little bit more. And we'll have a spoiler section at the end of this episode. And I had a lot of issues with the previous film. And this makes me both like the first film more, given the shape of the story now. And simultaneously, it makes me see some of the flaws in the plotting even more so now, to tell the truth. But they got me again because I'm so curious to see what happens with the next chapter because of the ending. We'll leave that for spoilers.
Yes. Well, look, I think this benefits from being the second film in a planned trilogy where they can just play with things. They can do whatever they want. There's not a lot of plotting in this film, right? And it's a lot of set pieces. One extremely entertaining musical set piece, which I think rivals last year's Sinners musical interlude, which also stars Jack O'Connell.
Correct.
Yeah, I just had a lot of fun with this. I thought the actors were having a ball. It lived up to its horror title because there is some pretty grisly torture scenes at the start of this film, which kind of threw me a bit. Yeah, but then a heap of hilarious moments too, and also a bit of an interesting kind of conversation about religion and atheism and devil worshipping, which you don't get a lot of devil worshipping talked about in seriousness, which was really fun. I just thought it was super entertaining film, and a little coda at the end there, which leads us into hopefully a third film.
Big question mark at the third film.
We'll see about that because I tried to see this. This was the opening weekend, and it was still like I had to get through Avatar, Zootopia, something else to even find sessions for this movie. So, maybe it's not as big as they thought.
Yeah, the opening weekend here was very poor. It was stronger in England, for example, where the first film was a huge hit, the previous one, I should say, and of course the first one also. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out overseas. The word of mouth on this is much stronger than on the previous one. A, I think it's a stronger film in general. And B, of course, we are now talking about people who are only the diehards turned out for this one. So of course they're going to be bigger fans of what they see. But I do think it's the better film. Yes, I have some questions for you about that. Oh, one more thing to bring up is another very important character here is the Samson character. This Alpha is maybe the next chapter is about him. It's possible.
It is possible. Yeah, I think I said last week that I was going to ding him for wearing shorts, but I'm going to walk that back because it is quite crucial to the story. And
well, he only puts the shorts on at one point, by the way. You still get to see him. By the way, like he is not, I don't know if he was more aroused in the previous film, but he's not as disproportionate in this time around.
Was it the same character? I thought the Alpha died in the last one, but maybe not. It is the same.
No, it's the same guy. Yeah, same actor.
Same Alpha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool relationship he has with the Doctor. Yeah, but you could never see this film by itself. You would have to see the 28 years later that came out last year. You have to see that first, which I think I liked a little bit better than you. And then going straight into this one, super entertaining. It's getting really great reviews everywhere, and I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, I think this was a lot of fun. Oh, except for one thing as well, I'll mention for anybody who's curious about this before we won't talk anything else spoiler related until we get into it. And this is not yet a spoiler, but I do agree that the one time that I did start to turn a little bit on the film was the degree of I understand these are bad guys, but the degree of the torture was like extreme. I'm like, I don't know if I need to see this. I know they're really bad. I got it.
Yeah.
But it was a little rough. And like you said, this is a pretty fun movie overall. And those scenes are not fun at all, which kind of felt off base for me.
Yeah, I just did see in the cast, which is interesting. There's Louis Serkis, who is the son of Andy Serkis, who is
interesting.
Very famed director, actor, motion capture performer. So yeah, he's getting a bit of work, which is good to see.
All right, I promise everybody we will check the show notes if you want to jump past all these conversation points, by the way. But we will definitely talk about Industry Season 4, Episode 2.
Yeah,
the Commander and the Gray Lady in just a moment, because one more brief review, because I think you love this movie, by the way. You just saw No Other Choice as well, correct?
No other choice. There was no other choice to give this film 5 stars. I absolutely enjoyed. This is what I go to the cinema for. I think I saw it the day or the second day that it came out here. It was we went to like a 10:30 session because we had a full day. And the session was pretty full. It was one of these boutique cinemas. We sat quite close to the screen, and it just took me away into this world populated full of very interesting themes. This movie is packed full of themes, and some things that you forget at the start come in at the end. Yep. Maybe a touch long for me, but I just put that down to my lack of endurance. I'm not going to ding the film for that. The performances are incredible. The directing is like auteur level. Mm-hmm. There is so many cool moves. It does call attention to the cinematography occasionally and the camera moves occasionally, which I appreciated. There's some weird kind of dissolves that the director kind of sticks in the edit, dissolves of one character over the other, which is all very meaningful. But yeah, just such a great time in the cinema, and I can't stop thinking about it since I saw it.
Yeah, I agree. This is my number 2 movie of the year. And this is Park Chan-wook, a true master at this point. Like I think I've mentioned it to you when I first mentioned it to you months ago when I saw it at the film festival, that he has maybe 4, possibly 5 masterpieces in his career. And as you mentioned, like he just thinks so much about the way every shot is framed and the meaning of everything, and just all these like beautiful little motifs he has where you just suddenly see another character's face reflected on a surface or something, and you know that that's what the character's thinking about at the moment. So all these little shortcuts he has for putting you inside of someone else's mind space and being able to pivot from comedy to tragedy. It's very much in the kind of comedic noir of the Coen brothers, but it's really a flavor all his own at this point. And
I did not realize.
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but how funny this was going to be.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
it's a story about a man who loses his job and tries to kill any other person that could possibly
Qualify.
take the next job that comes his way. But for the first half, we were just cacking ourselves laughing at it. Is slightly slapstick, but not too much. But all the side characters, his wife, this man that he's looking to kill, that man's wife, this crazy screaming woman who's hilarious.
Yep.
Yeah, just so entertaining that I wasn't expecting in this kind of psychopathic thriller genre.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it in the past with Parasite, for example, but this blend of comedy and horror and violence and action and romance that is in South Korean cinema, but that is so commonplace now that there's so many different excellent South Korean filmmakers that work in this mold. But really, Park Chan-wook popularized this to a large extent with some of those early breakout hits he had. Old Boy, the name just one, but it's just an incredible, just the entire film industry out there is pretty amazing, but also just the technical prowess. And it's very hard to go from like a comic to like land like that closing punch that this film lands, which I watched again last night, by the way, just to have this conversation. But it's like there is still like that menacing apocalypse that I don't want to spoil things, but it's just like this mundane ending of this film really feels like nearly apocalyptic in the imagery, right? It just feels like these forces so far beyond your control, like with no emotion at all, just chopping down trees basically, and like what that means for all of us in the future.
Oh, so shocking. It's coming for us, isn't it?
This is coming for all of us. Yeah, exactly.
It's coming for our jobs. I do remember when you first mentioned this, I think you might have seeded something in my mind about the movie takes the different turn every time. Every time you expect something to happen. I mean, there's a moment when he's holding a pot plant above his head, ready to drop it on someone. And I'm like, I know exactly what's going to happen. It does the opposite.
Right.
And it does that multiple times through the film. You think you know what's going to happen. You think you know he's going to pull the trigger. It doesn't happen.
Right.
And it's just constantly, and it's not frustrating at all. It's just surprising. It just keeps you engaged in the story because you just don't know where it's going.
And honestly, he's one of my absolute favorite filmmakers for the exact reason you say. I watch a movie like The Rip and I know exactly what's going to happen every step of the way. And there's something comforting in it and it's well made. And even though I know every twist that's going to happen, I still don't know, like, well, how's it all going to fall together at the end? And that's why I like The Rip. But when you watch a movie like Parasite, a different filmmaker, of course, but I'm just aligning them because they're brethren in a lot of ways. Park Chan-wook basically produced some of those films that kicked off Bong Joon-ho's career. Correct. Thanks. And so there's this fraternity there, but just exactly what you described, where and the Coen brothers do this also. That's why I love the Coen brothers, where it's saying like, we're going to play with this genre, this film noir genre, and what's going to happen next. But then they're not going to give you that. They think, okay, that's what you would expect. So then what would be surprising here? And they give you like, and the honestly, like for me as a film watcher, just the pleasure I get, just the joy of being like, oh, that's not what I expected at all. What a pleasure. And like just having this like goofy grin on my face the whole time I'm watching this movie. And it's like such an incredibly well-made film. And early in the year, by the way, everybody was saying like, wow, we're going to have 3 films, potentially foreign films with with Best Picture nominations. It could be almost half the slate. And now this has fallen off. When you look at the betting odds, this is not even in contention anymore for Best Picture. I do hope it still gets in there because, I mean, first of all, I personally think it's one of the best films of the year. And also because it's such a crowd pleaser. This movie, just on word of mouth, has become such a huge hit here in the US. And you saw this, did you see this with anybody? Who did you see this with?
Yeah. Went with my wife on a morning date to the movies, and then went
she liked it as well.
She loved it. Can't stop thinking about it as well. Yeah,
This is such a great wife movie, by the way, because the wife in this movie is like the most practical person here. She's just like, this shouldn't be so complicated. Get over yourself. And of course, he's all in his own head with things. Anyway, I want to have a much longer conversation about this movie with you, but I don't know if we're going to have time to do it today. So for anybody who's still there, we are going to talk about industry now. There's a lot of things to talk about in this episode of the show. And then we will have some spoilers, just a few spoilers on where 28 years later, the new Bone Temple film lands. And maybe Darren and I will have a full conversation about No Other Choice because it's really worth it. And it's coming out wide in the US. If you haven't already had a chance to see it, you'll definitely have a chance to see it this weekend. So go check it out and then catch our episode about it next week where we'll fit it in somewhere in the schedule. But we'll have a long conversation about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lock for like the best foreign film Oscar.
Oh, for sure.
Hope
so.
it gets more things. Did Parasite win best foreign film as well as best film at the Oscars, or did they?
Yeah, no, they definitely they won both. I mean, that's it would be like, yeah, that's usually like whatever. If there's any chance of anything getting nominated for best picture, I mean, better best picture, it would be the winner of best foreign. But yeah, that kind of swept everything that year. The main awards, not the acting awards though, but the film, screenplay, foreign film, director. Okay, so industry episode 2. I have to say that for the first of all, I don't know what this title means. It's the Commander and the Gray Lady. They did bring up Thatcher here, and Thatcher was called the Iron Lady, right? But not the Gray Lady. What is the Gray Lady? A newspaper? No, it's a Gray Lady. What is the Gray Lady? It's like the Red Cross. Is it like the medical service out there, the women? Is that what it's called?
It does not ring a bell. I'm not sure what the Grey Lady means.
Anyway, I'm not sure what it means either. And in the context of the series, the episode here as well. Like I said, they did mention Thatcher, but that's the Iron Lady. But anyway, anyone from the UK maybe has some.
Yeah, it does say the American Red Cross volunteers in grey uniforms who helped hospital patients in World War II.
But that's a U.S. reference. So yeah, that still doesn't make sense. I don't know. If, maybe someone out there in England knows.
Hang on. A ghost reputed to haunt a certain English manor. So maybe that's something.
That could be something. We do have ghosts here. Yeah. This is a Ghost of Christmas Past type situation really is. Here.
And poor old Yasmin does haunt the mansion a little bit to try to stir things up, doesn't she?
I mean, she's trying to keep it together, I have to say. There's some pretty amazing. First of all, I loved like the first 2/3 or so of this episode. I like just drilling in on Yasmin and Henry's relationship and, of course, where he's been at. I liked some of these like kind of tough love conversations that they had with him to just say, like, get yourself together. I mean, obviously, I have not struggled with depression. He's obviously struggling with depression. So it's easy to just be like, hey, suck it up. That's not the best answer for people who have these kind of crises. But he doesn't seem to be doing anything productive to try to counteract it. So I did like the fact that he's getting it from all sides, by the way. Even Otto seems to have a pretty good bit of advice there. And everyone's trying to get him out of this funk for their own reasons. We see Whitney, I think, gives him a pretty good pep talk, though this still doesn't work. I really thought that one was going to unlock him from this, but it really didn't help him out. And of course, this is his actual birthday. We find out over the course of the episode, it's the birthday. It's that his father killed himself on his 40th birthday. So he's like haunted by his father. Literally, he's haunted by his father in this episode of the show. What were your opinions of this in general?
Yeah, what a legacy. And he didn't tell Yasmin that his father did kill himself, and so he just wanted to see that one more sunrise. I was a little bit mixed on this episode, but I did love it for, again, swinging for the fences. Everyone dressed up. Very overt Kubrick references again. I had
slow pans. So many slow pans.
Yeah, and so I had to Shazam a couple of the tracks. There was Jazz Suite No. 2 from Eyes Wide Shut. And there was also that music for the funeral of Queen Mary from Clockwork Orange towards the end. I liked the way that they were doing long takes with handheld camera. It was definitely the writers who directed this episode, again, the creators of the show, who really like to go all out. We were a little bit worried about their fan service and the way that they just swing for the fences. But all in all, I enjoyed it. Super entertaining, but maybe it's not really getting to what we really want. Again, Harper was sidelined. She had a bit of a weird scene with Whitney where she was just smiling. I'm not sure whether she was flirting with him or whether she liked having the power over him and she could turn him down when he wanted another session with her.
I think I read that differently. I think that she, at one point, when she finds out that he made his first millions or so while he was still in graduate school, by realizing that, hey, if he bought up these funeral parlors and just burned the bodies, but then did it as low cost as possible with no fancy coffins and with no flowers, that he could just save a lot of money and get rid of all that overhead. And she's just like, yeah, great. But she seems like I don't think she was turned out at all by realizing how cold potentially he was about this particular thing.
Right. I thought she might have admired that he'd come from nothing like her, but you think she was a bit turned off by that pretty cold way of burying someone.
Yeah, if I read her, like, there's a delayed reaction where she's kind of like, yeah, I read that as her not really loving what she's hearing there. But hey, is it any more offensive than many of the other people she's already done business with on the show?
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I'm just thinking the Grey Lady, because there was a bit of a subplot with one of the servants, the lady that works there, whose job it is to open the windows every morning, and you need to let her do her job. The curtains. You need to let her do her job, because otherwise, what else does she have to do? And I think she might have referred to Yasmin when they were in the pub. She might have referred to her as a bit of a ghost that was haunting the mansion, unable to have sex with her husband and just trying to find it somewhere else.
Although she hasn't cheated on him, so that's something. But
exactly.
I mean, I guess it's part of the prenup too. So he just goes to speaking to how thin-skinned Henry is, that he has put this into his prenup, that he assumes that she's going to cheat on him.
Yeah, but he can't keep the needle out of his arm. It was a real requiem for a dream shot of his
yeah, exactly.
His arm there.
Yeah, he's just got every possible chemical combination going. Oh, by the way, how do you, I should circle back all the way to the beginning. One of the things that kind of really showing what a failure he's been in recent times, not only losing this money and the whole thing that happened last week and last season, I should say, that he now ran for parliament. He lost the position apparently for the first time in like a generation, that this has not been held by his party. But honestly, I'm a bin face truther. I want to see what bin face's platform would have been like.
I think there is an actual bin face that did run.
For real? Oh my God! See,
I think so. I think I read that. Yes.
Oh man,
I want to see. It's a very English thing. Yeah.
I want to see bin face in action.
You've heard of that poll that they did? They wanted to name a new ferry or something, and Boaty McBoatface was the highest voted name for name this new ferry. So that's what they called it. The people have spoken.
There you go, Boaty McBoatface. There you go. That's populism at its greatest. So at this birthday party, one of the of course, this really a satire, really on the nose satire of this upper class, all dressed up in this regalia. Claire Forlani, by the way, shows up. I have not seen this woman. Apparently, I had to look her up on IMDb. She's been working pretty steadily. She's done TV shows. She's been in a bunch of like straight to Netflix or straight to cable romantic comedies. But for me, have not seen her since her heyday in the late 1990s, early 2000s. She was like a Meet Joe Black, for example. And that's like almost 30 years ago now. And she looked incredible. And she shows up as one of the few people that Yasmin thinks that she can relate to, only to find out that she still has a thing for Otto. And the Otto's comment that her mouth was even better than her brother's was like, this is Otto. Quite an interesting family we're talking about here.
So this is Yasmin's aunt, and we haven't seen her before, have we?
I don't think
like
so,
you. No. I think I remember Claire Forlane. Was she in Mallrats?
Oh my God, yes. Mallrats, yep.
And that was well over 30 years ago. So yeah, I don't remember her in anything since the 90s. And she came in very dynamic, and hopefully she has a bit more to do, because she is just like her brother, Yasmin's father, and just a reprehensible human being, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I admired her philosophy on like, don't give anyone your unrequited love. This really speaks to her. I can only imagine how unhealthy her sex life has been given her backstory. But yeah, this was when industry got an industry type situation where I'm like, okay, do we really need all this? But that was one of that left me a sour taste in my mouth, no pun intended. But but most of this I actually really worked for me. A little heavy-handed though, for sure. And industry has done this before, where we saw these kind of dream-like sequences. In this particular case, we see that Henry is basically wrestling with the memory of his father and goes on this whole trip into the town, beats this guy. Looks like he's going to beat him to death, by the way. And everybody's just cool with it anyway at the end. That whole thing was, like I said, industry's kind of played with this kind of altered mental state thing in the past. Not my favorite flavor of industry, once again. So parts of this worked better for me than others. But I did really like probably the first half when we see like all those scenes between Henry and Yasmin and seeing where her head's at and all those conversations and just the frustration she's having with trying to keep him to snap out of this situation. And it does eventually work. What did you think of where things land at the end? He almost kills himself. And then I guess the words that priest spoke to him cause him to snap out of it. And he decides to live and sees another sunrise. He's outlived his father, and he goes running back to Yasmin. They have sex right on the hood of the car.
I thought, it was a bit Christmas Carol, wasn't it? With
For sure, yeah.
the ghosts and all that kind of thing. It was great to see Yasmin all slutty and powerful at the end. I think that's where she's the best. And I love the actress that plays her. I think she's so fantastic. I thought we would have seen the servant girl look out the window, but we saw it's Henry's dad, or no, it's Henry's uncle that we saw looking out the window, where he had an interesting quote about mental illness, how you push it down, or you just push it aside, or you just let it fester until
or you integrate it into your life, and then he like starts drinking from the bottle at that moment. So
one day you'll find you've walked out of the woods, which I think is quite apt. So if you can integrate it into your life and do that, then hopefully you can look for the day where it disappears. Yeah, Yasmin, I love the sex on the car, and then the kissing of the blood on the hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, very vampiric. But then he has to go one step too far and mention a baby, which
let's have a baby.
That is not Yasmin at all, especially not in this time of her life. She's trapped enough, and she's finally got the virility of her husband back. She wants to have some fun.
Yeah. And then, of course, double-edged there. I mean, the double negative there, that first of all, she does not want to have a kid, probably. She wants to have her fun. Probably is skeptical as to whether she wants to be put into now yet another role, right? She just basically went from she basically has never had a chance to present herself. She got her original position because of her dad. Everybody wanted access to her dad. And then she was this representation of her family in a very negative way. And then she was dating Muck and in the tabloids, and now she's his wife. And like, it's just these roles that everybody expects her to. And now she could be a mom, right? So it's just like, she can never escape these traps. That is literally what Claire Forlani warns us about, right? Is that men just want to kill you. I'm not sure if I agree with that mentality, but I am saying that as a man, I've never tried to kill a woman, not intentionally anyway. But what she says in general about saying like, you're going to be trapped by this relationship, don't be trapped by it. So maybe something she is thinking about, but more than anything else, she's thinking about this terrible relationship that she's had with her parents and that Henry had with his dad. And now you're going to bring a kid into this. I mean, probably not the healthiest couple to be having a kid.
No, you got to agree with that. But Henry now does have a job. So he says that, a man needs to work, and he wants to work, even though the job is fake, being the fake CEO.
All his jobs are fake,
this
though.
Company. Well, that's right. And maybe if you're born with a title like that, you don't actually, no one takes you seriously to actually get a real job. You're just a figurehead to raise money, which obviously there must be satisfaction in that, but yeah, he's going to struggle, I think, at tender, where this Max Minghella holds all the aces and is possibly going to set Henry up for a fall for whatever's going down in Africa.
Yeah, that's what concerns me the most about all this, is that I'm not sure yet whether the Max Minghella character knows, or I should say, this is all part of a setup, or if he really is blindly believing his own theory of the case that this thing's going to work. He's going to make this bank that is bigger than all other banks. It's going to disrupt all banking in the world. I'm not sure how that would happen at this point in history, but possibly. But it still remains to be seen if that's true or not. But most importantly is that we know that now, and we're going to circle back to this based on the trailer for next week, that both Harper and this journalist are not in cahoots, but basically both aware of the fact that this tender thing is a house of cards that's ready to collapse. So this is what her target for shorting is. So again, is there going to be another collapse around something else that Henry touches? I can't imagine it's going to be good for his mental health.
Well, there's something to look forward to. Poor old Henry Muck.
Poor Henry in the muck again.
Falling down again, yes. But how's Whitney? I mean, his interest in Harper, what he wants her new fund. She hasn't got a fund anymore, but she's starting a fund with Eric.
Yep.
He wants her money. Surely he can see that she's in the business of shorting and that his company is going to be the biggest target for her. Yeah, and especially this journalist who's going to come into it. He's very interesting. And also Whitney's assistant has a little very memorable role.
You have to bring that up. Yeah.
Who tries to seduce Yasmin, but then backs out because it was successful unexpectedly. And she's like, okay, she's in a different world now. She's going to have to get used to it.
That was hilarious because you have to think about Yasmin literally being that character earlier where she puts on the flirting and in earlier seasons of the show and someone tries to push it to the limit and she's kind of like, not really. And she's like basically the shoes on the other foot here, which I thought was very entertaining. I love when she's like, I'll make up another bed for you. She's like, unless I hop in yours. And she's like, okay, come on. And she's like, maybe not. Then I guess I'm making you up another bed. Back to where we started. So
I wonder if that's in the prenup.
Yeah, I was wondering about that myself. I'm like, what happens if he comes back? And maybe is that a loophole there? I'm not sure.
Sounds like a loophole.
Yeah, and then if you see the trailer for next week, it looks like Yasmin and Harper are fighting. And again, I think it's because Harper is seeing not to invest in this idea, but that it could be a short potential. And Harper says, that's what I do. I find dead men walking. So that's her opinion of this company. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out.
Very curious. And I'd be very curious if the creators are directing the next episode. It feels like they can't do them all. Maybe they might save themselves for the end, but we'll see. Maybe they do the whole season and it's just going to be extremely operatic and crazy every episode.
Maybe they are doing that. I mean, you think about on other HBO shows where Mike White, for example, directs all of White Lotus, but you think about Barry. And did you ever watch Barry? Did you finish with Barry?
Maybe the first season I saw, yeah.
Okay. But by the final season, it was, what's his name? The star.
Bill Hader.
Bill Hader, yeah. Bill Hader wrote and directed, well, co-writing, but directing every episode. So it could be that this is the season that they direct them all. So it's possible. I haven't checked all the season credits.
No, well, we'll leave it as a surprise because, so fun, so industry, as you say, and even though a little bit mixed on it, it's just so fascinating to watch it all come together and just to leap off the screen in just craziness and costumes.
Yeah, I mean, this has been my experience with the show always, is that not all of this works for me. And maybe this season is, by the way, the initial audience reaction for this episode is stronger than last week. So maybe people do like this. But what I was going to say is that, like we were talking about before, there's nothing more than pleasurable to me to see and have an expectation of what's going to happen next. And the movie doesn't give me what I expect exactly. And that's how industry has been as well. Part of my appeal there is that it doesn't all work for me. And I'm like, are they going to be able to pull this off? And then, in my opinion, of all previous seasons, is that they have pulled it off in the end. And by the end, when it all settles, I'm enthusiastically on board, but I'm not enthusiastically on board all the way through. I have to take the pluses and the minuses and work my way through them. But there's always, like in this episode, for example, there are some like really great individual scenes over and over again, and some great little character touches. Like I thought that seduction sequence or failed seduction sequence was very funny. So there's just things that are, and then there's things that aren't necessarily in my tone, like the whole Christmas Carol thing, a very heavy-handed, haunted by your father, etc. I could have done with a little less of that or a little more. It could have been a little more subtly handled. But this is not a subtle show, so we're in for it. That's how it is.
It's definitely not a subtle show, and I'll take all those bits where it's a bit mixed on it if they land the ending and land the last few episodes. Yeah, I'll take that any day of the week because you can definitely put your brain in a little bit of a slow gear and just enjoy it.
All right. So, Darren, do you have a hard stop?
No, we can keep going.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's our conversation for industry. We'll be back again next week talking about it again. Actually, I might be doing industry by myself next week and maybe doing a recap of the Academy Award nominations. But Darren will be back next week at some point, and we'll have a longer conversation about No Other Choice. So do try to check that out if you haven't already seen it. Really brilliant, one of the best films of the year by foot. And check out my top 10 list. I'll spoil it for you right now that it was my number 2 movie of the year. So absolutely genius, I thought. And this Darren agrees. So anyway, we'll have a longer conversation about that. But you can dip out now if you are just here for the industry conversation, because I want to have a spoiler conversation about 28 years later, The Bone Temple. So, and we're going to spoil the film. So you've been warned.
I guess it is spoil. Well, it is definitely spoilable.
Yeah, you could definitely spoil, especially at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really liked the tone of this. I actually disagree a little bit when you were saying that this could have, you really can't engage with this if you haven't seen the first film. I disagree a little bit because the Spike character, who obviously is very important for the first film, is really secondary in this film, really doesn't get any kind of character development at all. He's barely recognized by Dr. Kelson until at the very ending. So it's important that he circles back on his journey, basically. But there's very little that connects this to the first film, except for the Kelson character. But you could have introduced them. And as a matter of fact, what I would say is, I think that this would have been, I think, a little bit stronger a starting point for a new 28 years, a cycle of films. You would have to move some things around to introduce some characters, obviously, but I think you could have done it, and this would have been more compelling. And then maybe eventually get to whatever that island is, if we even go back to it at all. Because at this point, it seems like really a weird choice. And now I'm already getting to the critical aspect of this, where I'm talking about the shape of the story overall, which just to let you know that when I walked out of the theater, I was almost about to give this film a 4-star review, even though I gave the last one a 2-star review, because just in the moment of watching it, I really had fun watching it. But then as I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, so this whole film, the whole reason to have this film, it dovetailed from the original one, is to have the Spike character. And he's barely in the film. He's really not of an important character. And then, of course, you have the doctor who has the Bone Temple, but who's the real star here, who was introduced in the last film, but it's not really it's his story. And he's very important. And we find out a lot about him. We see a little bit of his backstory. We see, obviously, his relationship that he builds up with the Samson character. So all that is really great. But then he's not going to carry over to the next episode. So it's strange as a middle chapter in the film. But in just watching it, I had a real blast watching this.
Yeah, I wonder if there are people that exist that are going to watch this film without having seen any of the others, because they do explain the backstory of Jimmy and how the outbreak occurred when he was a child, when he was watching Teletubbies. And so they do explain it in the way that I forgot that his dad was the priest.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We have the flashback. The thing that's interesting about it is we saw that in the first film. So you can imagine having this film and showing that as a flashback. But here's the thing. I don't even think we need that. I think him telling him the story when they sit down next to each other and he's like, Ian, I don't think I've ever liked anybody before. Having a conversation with you. I've never actually done this before. Just sit down and have a conversation with someone who I'm not trying to terrorize or antagonize or lord over, just having a conversation with another human being. And he goes and talks about his backstory. I mean, that's enough backstory for me. I don't even need to see the flashback. So, I thought it was really great. And the scenes between them, by the way, are fantastic. They're great scenes.
So fantastic. I mean, Jimmy reveals himself to be quite an intelligent person.
Yep.
And I was flashing back in my own mind to something that may have happened of him growing up and consuming a lot of books, being by himself, finding a safe place, finding food away from all the zombies and just reading because he does show a lot of intelligence, even though if it's a little bit skewed, especially his fascination with Satanism.
Yes, that he loves old Saint Nick. And it's funny also when you heard him say that, not Saint Nick, I should say old Nick.
Old
Saint Nick's
Nick.
a different devil of a whole different kind. The interesting thing about his backstory is that at first you think when he's saying all those things and he hints at them last movie, and I guess mostly in this one, that you think, is this just part of his propaganda to get these followers? And that's how I read the whole thing up until pretty late, until he has the conversation with the doctor. But then in that moment, you're like, no, he looked up and he saw this figure in his memory of his dad being the leader in the church. And he sees him as like the leader of the demons. And so he, in a way, has been out there maybe just saying he's looking for his dad, but maybe he truly has been looking for his dad. And there's that great moment that, again, that's what makes that moment so powerful when he runs into the doctor, because at first he's like, well, maybe he is my dad. Maybe he's thinking like, he's aged, so I don't know what he would look like now. And then having that conversation with him only to discover that they're not, but in a way, he's still a father figure for him. So it's interesting dynamic between the two of them.
Yes, totally. Yeah, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? I just love seeing two people sit down and talk and try to understand each other and where they're coming from, especially in a world like this where the extremes are so extreme. And to find common ground can be really difficult, especially with just a psychopathic Satanist and an educated doctor who's worked away a shortcut to control these zombies.
It's funny. This is always such a disappointment for me. As I was watching this movie, I was thinking there's so many things that really should be movies, but then get made into Netflix series. And we just talked about that recently where But I'm a Virgo, or I'm a Virgo, that was supposed to be a movie and was made into a series because Amazon was like, well, if you give me 5 episodes, I'll take your movie script. And he's like, okay, let me make this into 5 hours long. But or I guess it was less than that, like 4. But still, you're like doubling a movie script just to get the financing for the way projects are. Anyway, very strange how that is done nowadays. And as I was watching this movie, I'm like, I want to know more about every one of these really great scenes in this movie. And this movie, not so much the first one, by the way. I don't feel this way about the first film, but I'm like, this movie, I wanted this to be a TV series because I'm so disappointed with The Walking Dead, for example. Got so boring for me over a period of time because it was the same thing over and over and over again. And it's such interesting material. The idea that if society collapses and you have to rebuild it, how would you do it? And that's exactly what they're trying to deal with here. And you have this idea of like, do you try to cure this? Do you believe in, like you mentioned before, it's like, what do you believe in, science, or do you believe in mythology? Or religion? Do you kill the beasts, or do you try to understand them? Do you try to cure them? And again, like when you rebuild society, do you torture people and terrorize them and then try to grow your forces that way? Or do you try to work communally so that you can like rebuild? You've all lost everything. Why not work collaboratively? And the idea of having these different ideas bumping into each other and these little different cliques and how they might try to coincide or not. And I'm like, this could be a really fascinating TV show, honestly. And there's a whole world that could be explored here. I don't know if it's ever going to happen at this point, or if it could be maybe not budgetarily feasible. But yeah, I mean, I actually felt like I would like to see a 1 season about these characters. Before, I mean, I honestly felt really bad that the doctor dies at the end. I'm like, I mean, I want to see more of him for sure.
I was pretty upset realizing that, yeah, the doctor was not going to continue into the next movie, that's for sure, because well, how could he top himself in his musical sequence that he did, the Ralphie Horror Picture Show, I think I said.
No, I mean, that would be the button on every season would be him topping himself.
Yeah, right. Well, with the rise of AI, we may be experiencing this death of culture in our real lives, Victor. So we might have to take some tips from these apocalyptic films of how to live out in the wilderness by ourselves.
What if that happens? Darren. I will continue to make this podcast. The voice in the darkness is my voice here. And we will continue to talk about movies when they were good, like movies from the 70s and the 60s. And I'll start my own, I'll start wearing a blonde wig and I'll start my own cults. And it'll be,
yeah. Well, yeah, everyone has to save their AM radios and just to find that frequency.
Find everything, exactly, like Pluribus, got to find the radio frequency. I love his musical choices here. I love it. At first, I can't believe how much Duran Duran they played. I'm like, this is going to be a thing for Duran Duran. He's got early Duran Duran. He's like playing Rio and stuff. And he's also he's got later Duran. That's quite a variation in quality there, in my opinion.
It was great to see the pictures of him and his girlfriend on the wall of his little cabin. It looked like it was actually Ray Fiennes back in the day in his 20s. And you can imagine him searching record stores for some choice selections. I'm seeing a lot of vinyl and record players in films and TVs lately. I mean, maybe it's coming back in a big way. I might have to drag my crates out of the deep recesses of my cupboard and start playing them again.
I know. Here in the US, I mean, it's probably the same thing in Australia now, but like vinyl is massive here. Like all the young kids all want vinyl now. So it's like well, I mean, this goes back to the double-edged sword of the AI muck is coming to flood our social media. But I actually think that could be, this is my tangent here. I was just having this conversation recently. I think the cure, first of all, okay, I'm going to go way too far into this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was just talking about how sad it is that the internet was ruined by social media. So the internet was such a beautiful time, that moment in time. I'm sure you had that same experience where all of a sudden anything you're like, oh man, whatever happened to that artist? Whatever happened to that song? Oh my God, there's an MP3 of it out on the internet somewhere. And just that every day was like this discovery of like, man, there's like a little culture around every random these old artifacts that matter to me, but probably didn't matter to a lot of other people. And now all of a sudden there's like these little groups of people on a message board somewhere that are fascinated with that thing also. And it was so cool, all just discovering all these little communities. Maybe this dovetails perfectly with this conversation we're having about the cultures in this 28 years later movie. And the hordes of zombies is the AI horde that's coming for us. But that was like the beauty of the old internet. And then social media made everything like it's all about getting clicks and it's all about being popular and it's all about like grabbing your attention. And it's like everything's a slot machine. And it's like even if you were interested in a particular thing, it's like you can't even finish a thought because it's glued up with all this social media sludge that's coming your way. And people have obviously been totally cool with this. It's just the way we engage with the media nowadays. But now the AI sludge is coming, that those little nuggets of cultural detritus is so easy to generate by AI that we're suddenly going to get like billions and billions for every one naturally occurring legitimate meme. There's going to be hundreds of thousands of similar ones that the AI is just going to just puke out into the internet. And I think at some point people are going to be like, okay, enough. So this might finally be the thing that like makes people engage with the internet in a different way again. So that's my hopefully positive view of how AI might actually save us from ourselves.
Yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. I'm all for these. This media that is tactile and real and things like vinyl records or film. I mean, my daughter's turning 10 in a couple of days. All she wanted was a Polaroid camera. So it's like, great. I'm certainly going to buy that for you because that's something that you can take and create and have something to hold in your hand and put on the wall immediately. You don't have to go through a different media to get it. Yeah.
And it's not about putting it on a social site somewhere and getting a reaction. It's just about for you to have that image to preserve. So
exactly. Yes.
I love it. Yep. I love that idea. A couple more questions back to 28 years later before we wrap the conversation. One is, do you think that Jimmy is dead?
Oh, that's a very good question. He's hanging on the cross. He's got... He's actually crucified upside down. So I don't know how long you can stay like that. I've heard if you just crucified like vertically, then you will actually die pretty quickly. But he's actually upside down, so that might exacerbate his death. But he's only got one little stab wound, which didn't look super bad. So yeah, let's say that he's alive and that the Jimmy's he'll get a new gang and he'll be back in the third movie.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see. One of the few things I'm curious about seeing is how he evolves. I actually do think that this will change him in some way. So I'm curious to see how he evolves. He may just double down and get even worse. There's an incredible visual, right, of him seeing Samson returning, and he sees him as this giant demon, which is pretty amazing.
Well,
So
that
yeah, I'm
feels
curious
like he's going to double down, doesn't it? That he really does believe in Satan. And
if he was rejected by Satan, then he tries to impress him even more potentially. But I'm very curious to see how that plays out. That's yeah. Go ahead.
This Jack O'Connell actor, he's going to be a superstar, I reckon. He's just so good. I've only seen him in a couple of things, but why wouldn't you put him in the next movie? Because he's so striking.
Oh yeah, he's terrific, and he's always so charismatic whenever you see him in anything. So that's question number one. Question number two was, let's just talk about the very ending now. So of course, I was shocked by this, by the way. Somehow I did not know this was going to happen, but I really thought that we'd not see anything about Cillian Murphy's character until the third film, if there was one. And we get this here where, of course, tying the stories together, he's still out on that shack. It's funny, when I saw the rocks by the window, I'm like, oh, they're doing a great job of imitating exactly the first film. And like, oh no, this is the same shack. And of course, they're in the last moments, him and his daughter are going out. I don't know if the mom survived or not, but apparently not, it seems like. And going out to rescue Spike and this other Jamina?
Yeah. Was that Jamina? That's Jimmy Inc. She's got she does the tattoos on all over herself. Just the image of that island, of that green, it brought me straight back to 28 days later, the ending of that film, shot on the only bit of the film actually shot on a film rather than the digital photography. It just brought me straight back, and I went, what is happening? And then to see the beautiful face of Cillian Murphy come in, totally shocked. But yeah, I was very happy to see him. He just looks so fantastic, and it just gives this film an added power. His daughter was brilliant as well. They were talking about how you beat the fascism, and they what was it, at the end of World War II, you had to support Germany and support Japan.
Right, because World War I, they bankrupted Germany, and then that's what led to World War II,
Yeah, very interesting. The way you support their economies, then they're not going to be evil. They got no reason. If they got strong economies, then everyone's on an equal footing. Interesting. I
like when he's like saying this, that might be on the test tomorrow. She's like, aren't you writing the test?
So cute. So they've just been by themselves for this whole time. You'd think her hearing is very acute, that she can hear anything that's coming on this island. So they're all very well trained. And she asks, do we help them? And he says, he had to think about it, but he said, of course we do. Yeah. So a very nice sentiment to end on.
And of course, the last part I have to talk about is the revelations we have. I don't know if I do like where this takes the story, but I'm not sure if I needed to know a lot more about the infected people. But this revelation we see early on, first of all, that the infected, when they see humans, regular humans, even babies or whatever, they see them as these creatures that are trying to attack them. And then they rage out and attack them, kill them. A really grotesque scene where he like puts his fingers to this guy's eye sockets and yanks his head right off. A lot of really gruesome imagery in this film, by the way. I guess not so surprising at this point. But that's the first part. And then to this revelation by the doctor later on that these people can be reached, that like the virus is over their rational mind, and that you can cure it to some extent. Maybe potentially, has he cured this guy? Is he cured for good? Or once the antipsychotics wear off, that he's back to his normal self?
I felt like he was cured for good. The doctor did have success, but the doctor will never know it, which I thought was quite sad. I thought Samson was cured, and the other infected could see in his eyes that he was now not one of them. So they turned on him.
Well, he speaks, right? I love that. I don't have a ticket.
So yeah, he gets reinfected, and all of a sudden the shorts are off again, and he's back to wanting the drugs. I did think it was very cute. I mean, the dancing scenes between Samson and the doctor was just so cute. The way that they would just do their drugs together and just bliss out on the mountain. And
that's one of the best. That's one of the messages here, right? If you all do drugs together, it'll be all right.
You can while away your days in happiness. Yeah, very cool. That could have been a nice little short story in amongst this chaos.
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I like this one better, I have to say, is that it feels like this kind of why I say I would like to see this as a TV show. These almost feel like a bunch of short stories. And people might complain, although reaction, like you mentioned, critical reaction has been very strong, that they'd be like, well, it's too episodic. I actually really like that. The more, the less I'm in general with any of these kind of fantasy, science fiction, horror, etc. stories, when they are more low stakes, they just put you in the world and you just have these like slice of life moments, like how people are coping. I find that way more compelling than having these kind of really big set pieces normally. So anyway, I actually like that. Like you said, that the fact that it feels like it's like a short story cut out of this world, I'm like, that's really more my speed anyway.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. That reminds me of that Last of Us TV series where it had that gay couple. I think it was like
exactly,
episode
right.
2 or 3, that was all it was their story, and it was a standalone episode, and just so fascinating.
And I didn't really like the second season of The Last of Us, but I recommended to you on this podcast that there's that one standalone episode which you can basically pretty much watch on its own. That one of the main characters, I mean, I guess it's a spoiler, but I think everybody knows, one of the main characters, I'll still keep it vague, gets killed very early in this season. And then we flash back. So there's like a reunion in this flashback. And it is just this really beautiful father-daughter story set in this apocalyptic world. And it was so moving. I was like so touched by it. And I mean, honestly, you could just do that. Just give me more of those like kind of moments and not worry so much about these delivering a plot that oftentimes drag down for 8 episodes or whatever. But anyway, yeah, I really liked all those sequences with Samson. But where do you think this takes the direction of the film? Now, Samson is like semi-human again, but obviously still has that power. He could like still kill off a bunch of these infected, and he can't be killed by them. But where do you think the film is going to go? The series is going to go with somehow curing these people? Like, what direction do you think they're trying to go with that?
Well, the only way that they can go is if Jimmy lives and he has that the doctor's notes, and he has the concoction of drugs that lifts the fog from the infected's brain. That I think that's the only way it can go to keep this idea of Samson becoming human again. And then I don't know, more chase sequences. It feels like it's going back. I mean, obviously you're bringing back Cillian Murphy. It's gonna, I don't know. Very interesting. Is this gonna get made though? Really, I don't know. I've heard word that Danny Boyle is interested in coming back, but I thought it was really refreshing seeing this Nia DaCosta make something completely different from the rest of the series. So maybe you get another director and you just do something different again. I don't know, but yeah, it's going to be a while off. Not 28 weeks later.
No, it's going to be a while off. But I agree. I think that this movie will probably play better with a general audience. And if this plays for a while, if this just ends up on Netflix like the first one did, and people watch it, and you give it more time, you give it a couple of years, and then the audience builds up for it. And I do think, honestly, I was like, I don't know if we're going to see a third film, even as I was watching this film. And then when you see Cillian Murphy at the end, I'm like, man, you got to say another 28 movies coming out with Cillian Murphy in it. I think that's going to make more money than probably either one of these films did, right? So I think like that is probably going to pre-sell the movie in a way. So I feel like it's more likely to happen than not. But also, I think that you are going to see Danny Boyle come back with Alex Garland, because I was reading about the financing on these first 2 films. Because it went to like a bidding war for them to finance this thing. Per film, Garland and Boyle are splitting $15 million per film. So $30 million split between the two of them for these 2 films. And I assume it'll be the same for the last film. So, I mean, Boyle's definitely going to come back and direct. I think he wants to. So if he wants to, he's going to do it. I mean, if he doesn't want to, then maybe Garland can direct. I mean, he's directed other films before. I think Nia DaCosta did a great job directing this film, by the way. And I do love, like, when you see the thing that's most memorable here that I really liked, we didn't have some of those really cool night shot effects that Danny Boyle did with the iPhones and stuff, and the kind of like the kills with the blood spatter frozen. So that was cool. She didn't do any of that. It was a very different tempo for this film. But I loved the thing that's really stands out the most for me was Samson's coming back into himself, that we like his memories of the train and being in the forest, and then sitting in the train, and then as a child, and then you see him as an older person, and then as the current Samson, like, and then like suddenly he's surrounded by zombies. All of that was really, really very well done.
I got to agree. Yeah, she's great. I don't think I've seen any of her films. I think
Did
she
you
did
see
the
Candyman?
Marvels.
Did you see the new Candyman?
I think I saw a little bit of. I think I saw the opening of Candyman. Yeah.
The opening of Candyman is excellent. I'm not a huge
Yes.
fan of Candyman, but it's a movie I don't love, but it is so well made. It's like really, really well made.
Yeah, and she's come up through the ranks. I think she was like a protege of Jordan Peele's, and
He produced
very
Candyman.
smart lady, best friend of that famous actress
Tessa
who's
Thompson?
in Tessa Thompson, who's always great in everything, and she's been in Alex Garland stuff before. But yeah, that's a good call on Alex Garland possibly directing the next one. I mean, he could easily jump in and do something crazy interesting for sure.
Although he's making that that video game adaptation right now. It's like a $300 million movie. So maybe he'll be too busy.
Wow, what's that one?
Good question. Oh, is it Death Stranding maybe?
Oh, okay. God, he's so prolific. I mean, he must just write so quickly.
Elder Ring.
Oh, okay.
A24's biggest budget by far, their biggest budget ever.
Wow.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if that's going to be a hit. I got to tell you, it's pretty risky. But I guess it's pre-sold. They probably sold all the rights around the world, so probably paid for itself already.
Yeah, and I'm not a massive gamer, but I have heard of that, and I think a lot of people will turn out to either hate watch it or try to get on board.
Well, I guess it's like if you want the Game of Thrones, not Game of Thrones, which of course is also huge, but the Lord of the Rings films just got reissued this week around the world, and apparently had like sellouts in these very limited screenings they had. So I think that's probably the expectation, that A24 is investing large in this huge fantasy world, and maybe it misses and you've pre-sold it, your exposure is pretty limited. But if it turns into the next Game of Thrones or the next Lord of the Rings, obviously it's going to make billions of dollars for them eventually. So I guess that's the gamble they're taking.
Quite a gamble, $300 million gamble.
I'm not sure if Garland is the person I would hire to, but then again, I wouldn't have thought that Peter Jackson was going to make the Lord of the Rings films such a massive success either. So I guess it all remains to be seen.
Yeah. Based on early Peter Jackson films, you would never pick it in a million.
Brain dead, not really the speed of that.
Great story. That's just such a great story, Peter Jackson. I love him.
Yeah, same. I can't wait for him will he ever make another movie again? That's the other question. Other non-documentary.
Yes, he fell down his Beatles hole for a few years. So I'm not sure.
And he made a fortune on all that technology that they're using for that, all that AI technology to restore those films and stuff. It's like pretty incredible being able to stitch all that stuff together. But and he's made a fortune off of it. But I still like to see him engage with it. As long as it's not the Lovely Bones. That was not very good.
Oh, interesting. I quite enjoyed that.
Oh, one more thing to mention is if you wanted to see, Nia Costa made a movie this year with Tessa Thompson called Hedda. It's on Amazon Prime. So I have not seen it, but I probably will watch it now because I did like her direction so much here. Curious to see what else she did. And I'm a big fan of Tessa Thompson also. So just curious to check that one out.
Yeah, I think I studied Hedda Gabler in school, so I think I'm burnt. I'm burnt from that.
You're burnt on that. Although I hear it's a very loose adaptation, and there's an outside chance that Tessa Thompson does get an Academy Award nomination for that performance. So
she is brilliant.
So yeah, a big fan. A lot of fun in His and Hers, which I didn't like that much, but she was a lot of fun in it. All right, Darren. So next week, let's try out The Beauty, and we'll see when we can discuss it at some point. 3 episodes this week. And then 2 episodes every week after that, I think. So it's a quick run. I think like 4 weeks, the whole thing's done. So it could be something to talk about here on the pod.
Oh, that's interesting. 3 at once. That's an interesting drop.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going away for a few days next week, so we'll have to catch up at some stage. But yeah, keen on The Beauty, or at least sampling it.
And and we'll touch base on No Other Choice. Yeah, we'll have a conversation about it next week. Let me know when you're back, and we can schedule something.
Sounds good. Yeah, maybe I'll go see No Other Choice again in the cinema. God, so
I think it's worth it. I just saw it a second time. I think I liked it better. I think I upped my star rating by half a star. So.
Epic.
All right, Darren. Thanks again for the conversation.
Thanks so much, Victor. Cheers.